Thank you so much for joining us today for our Empowered Financial Decisions conversation and workshop with Lindsey Lathrop-Ryan and Colin, her husband, who are both former Vermonters who have a soft spot in their heart for Vermonters and Vermont business owners. They're now located in Durham, North Carolina, and we're so excited to have them. To share their talents and expertise and help guide us in our approach and how we can make informed and empowered business decisions. Before we begin, I want to recognize the Abenaki people on whose land we're having this conversation and recognize them as the past, present, and future caretakers of this land. We all love the beautiful space where we explore the mountains and water and culture of Vermont. And so we want to recognize the people who came here before us and honor their tradition and see it into the future. So without further ado, thank you so much for joining us. Lindsey and Colin are going to introduce each other and get started. Thank you.
Thank you, Karin. And we, as Karin mentioned, we are calling in from Durham, North Carolina, and would like to acknowledge the Tuscarora and the Skaruri tribes, lands that we live on now. And one day, hopefully, we will know this beautiful place that we have moved to, because we basically stay in our house all day. And other than the weather, we could just be living in Vermont. So I would love to introduce to you my husband, Colin. Colin has been a professional speaker for over 10 years, really in the subjects of finance, both personal and business finance, as well as looking at how to build courage and confidence when it comes to presenting. And so he wrote a book called A Comedic Guide to Money, and he teaches the art of presenting. He has a Facebook group called Courageous Presenters. So I'll put the link in the chat if you're interested in looking that up. But as two entrepreneurs who are married, we talk about money a lot. And I'm really excited to talk to you all today about what we have learned over the last, almost 9 years that we've been together, and what that looks like for us as two married entrepreneurs.
Yes, I would like to introduce Lindsey. This is always a pleasure. I feel like when I'm not on a call with her, I'm going to bring her up anyway. She's so smart and so good at helping people with visibility, with negotiating for better pay, and just like promoting yourself, right? Mm-hmm. Like putting yourself out there and being seen. And Lindsey, I think, is so good at getting people unstuck and cheering for them. And I often hear her calls, through her door, through my door. And I'm like, man, that sounds like the best conversation ever. And she's really good with money. So yes, to your point, Lindsey, we talk about money all the time. It's why we have sort of the lifestyle and the life that we have. And we both love Vermont, and we both love the world of being a business owner and entrepreneur. So we are like thrilled that you're here. And thanks for some of your answers. Yeah. Already. I'm seeing some good humor in these. Steady income. Is it Janina? Am I saying that right? Yeah. Yes. Thank you for please. Sharing that. Especially as an entrepreneur, my Lord, it's feast and it's famine, and it's feast and it's exactly. That's a good visual for it. Elizabeth wrote an inventory management system that doesn't cost $18 million. I hope that's an exaggeration, but if it's not, then that's definitely a magic wand scenario. Steady income again from Kate, and go Tar Heels from Janina. So not a financial share, but a very positive. So we're gonna get into it, and thank you all for being here. Awesome. And thank you, Karin, for making this happen.
So if you are here because you want, 5 tips to save money, or finally lose the COVID-19. Like this isn't the place. But what we're going to talk about today.
The COVID-19 pounds,
the
by
pounds,
the way.
yeah.
We don't have any medical
I
advice.
yeah. I hope you lose the COVID. I hope we all can lose the COVID-19. But what we are going to do is to go deeper into the stuff that we say to ourselves that hold us back, especially around money. And this is stuff that like, I used to think was so cheesy and kind of woo woo. And I was like, this doesn't have anything about like making real shit happen in my business. And now I understand that like the myth is, and this is the myth about everything, but let's talk about finance, that you get this advice and then you just do it. Like you should just be able to control yourself. You should just be able to implement these things. And yet, if you don't actually dive deeper into the stuff that is holding you back, like you will never be able to move forward. Like you can think that you're muscling your way through, but you're not going to. And so what we're going to cover today is I'm going to really touch upon, we haven't, 50 minutes. I'm going to touch upon mindset and stuff that you can be thinking about now that we're into the new year. And there's probably a lot, like who else here feels super pressured to like set big goals, right? Like this time of year is like, you set all the big goals, right? But I want to take a step back and figure out why are we setting these goals? Like, why do they matter to us? So I'm going to talk about that. And then Colin is going to cover what he calls courageous finance and what those tips are in terms of looking at and implementing the principles that we're going to talk about today in your business. And then I want to open it up to a discussion and hear what you're all thinking about. Like really, that is our biggest interest is to make this into a conversation. So that's what we have today. And if you have questions, feel free to put them in the chat or other like things. If you want to cheer us on, we love that too. So sound good? Thumbs up?
Great.
Okay. So biggest thing around mindset is knowing your core values. Like that's number one. And so if you don't know what those are for you and you have a business, you have to start there. It's not like go into revenue goal setting, nothing. You have to start with the basics. And this is a little bit embarrassing for me to say, but I'm looking for my notebook. I just revisited these this morning because I knew I was doing this workshop. So it's really important to start doing these. And that means that I've put this off. Like I do this every year, usually quarterly, but I just check in to make sure like I know my bigger why. The cool thing about core values is that they help you not only decide what's worth investing in, but what to take action on. And they're really crucial for decision points. They are what give our lives meaning. They're what I'm assuming that we all have businesses because we want to create some meaning in the world, right? And make some kind of bigger impact. And so if we don't really know what it is that energizes us or what our why is, then how do we know what's worth investing in? You know, why you're saving money for what? You know, Colin and I are both savers, and it's interesting being two savers that are married. You don't usually see that, but we do this thing where we like can out frugal each other, which sounds kind of silly.
It's deeply paralyzing.
It's deeply paralyzing.
Be clear. It's like when we travel, like we go to Bali, or we did before 2020, and it's very expensive to get there and then very cheap once you're there. You can sort of live like a king and a queen. And we can sort of get trapped in what restaurant to go to, like walking back and forth between because it's like
and you
get a little price focused. So there are benefits to it. But Lindsay's right. If you don't manage the mindset, you can create what I like to call a functional dysfunction.
Yep.
Which is where a goal or a value that you have is sort of paralyzing you. And I think when Lindsay talks about core values, it's like this idea of when are you at your best and the most in motion and the most confident, like this is me living out my values in my business. And so that's what she's going to help us dig into, which is super, super helpful.
So in the chat, I pasted some questions for you to ask. And these are the questions that I went through today. this morning getting really rooted in what we were going to talk about today. You know, as you were just saying, like when you are at your very best in your business, what are you doing, right? Thinking back to maybe last year, the year before, if last year isn't a great measuring stick for you, but what was it like to just be in the flow of your business? What were you doing? I think the opposite of that could be, what is something that you really dislike as an entrepreneur? An inventory management system. That's probably something that you're not like super excited to do. I know for me, it's creating a CRM system, right? Figuring out all those automations and the tech side.
Yeah. And so, we'll make sure if you've never used Zoom before or not used it enough, you can save the chat at the bottom. So don't feel the pressure to copy and paste or save these, but let's open it up. When you are at your best in your business, what is it that you're doing?
Anyone want to share?
I'm going to jump right in here and warm the space up.
Okay.
So I really love creating the platform where people can be their best selves and see their dreams realized. I used to work in higher ed. And so that is a really close connection of creating an opportunity where someone can actualize what they're hoping to achieve. And I see that being the opportunity here, whether it's through showcase opportunity or helping to connect someone who's just starting a business with someone who's a seasoned business owner. And so that's something that I'm finding real joy, and like that flow state where you lose time and you forget to have lunch because you're like, I'm really excited about this. That's what's bringing me joy and passion in my work.
That's amazing. By a quick show of hands, does anyone here struggle to take a lunch break as an entrepreneur because there's just so much to do?
I always eat lunch.
That's true. I eat lunch, but I mean, like, I struggle to stop for the day, or you wake up and you're like, oh my gosh, I have 100 things to do. I left my old job because I just wanted to walk around at 3 o'clock on a weekday. And it's like, I never do it because it's the entrepreneurial hustle is a real pressure point. Who else has something when you're at your best in your business? What is it you're doing?
I want to jump in because this was a surprise to me, and it was a recent surprise to me, and it came after a couple of discussions with Karin and some other good friends who have watched me start up a business out of nothing really over the last couple of months. So I was surprised that, because I didn't expect to enjoy it, but just explaining to other people what I could do for them and to sort of give my dreams actual words. And I found that I was able to get into a flow state with another person, describing how I can help them bring their book ideas and their writing ideas to life. So it was a part that I jumped in, not expecting to have fun with that, and it's been the funnest part.
That's so fun, Kim.
I love that.
Yeah.
Anytime you use the word funnest, that's that's where we want to be.
That's right.
That's great. One more? Who else is willing to share? Yeah, go ahead, Kate.
I have two, and one is obviously when I'm in the studio and actually making something. That's my favorite part. But then what I've realized is that I'm really, really good at sort of evaluating workflow and systems and being like, oh, I think if I put shelves over here, it'll make my life so much easier. Or if I organize shipping this way, it'll make my life so much easier. I'm really, really good at creating those systems, but then I want to hand them off to somebody.
Yeah. So when, okay, I stop here and they continue it on.
Yeah. Like I like that process of troubleshooting and feeling things out to make things move really efficiently, but then I want to hand it off to somebody.
Kate, I started a podcast this year. It's called Courageous Presenters. So it's really about the art of speaking and presenting. But the last person I interviewed talks about bootstrapping and when you want to outsource and how to know when you're there. I mean, you clearly know you're there, but how to make that happen. So I'm going to share that with you because I think it'll be a little extra guidance and inspiration.
That's really great. Well,
Cool.
Thank you for sharing this. I really encourage you to, spend some time, even if it's 15 minutes, set a timer and pick 3 to go through. Really what's going to help you with this is, I think, to the point of Colin, understanding when you are starting to transition from like, am I the best to do this part of my business, to, getting help, and like, where does that come from? Like, when you have that list in front of you, it helps you filter more quickly. And you can also, I often talk about this in terms of being almost like your non-negotiables, like the things that you're protecting. If this gig doesn't have X, Y, and Z for me, then it's a no. Because if I take that on, then I'm saying no to something else. Like this yes says no to something else. And so it helps you start to filter more quickly.
Wow.
I would say that we're all here because we want to make profit in our business. Is that true? Yeah. Because if we make profit, we can keep like having our businesses, and we can hire people and do really awesome things in our life. So what I will say is that so core values, number 1. Number 2 is you got to know what your life costs you. You have to have a life budget. Anyone here? Does everyone here? Well, that I don't want to point anyone out. You know who you are. You don't have a life budget.
Can I jump?
Yeah,
Sorry.
go ahead.
Does anyone here know what it costs them in a year
To live.
Their expenses? Does anybody know that number? You don't have to say it, but does anyone know it? Karin? Okay. Well, good. I'm seeing a face from Beatrix. Am I saying that right, Beatrix? That tells me that we're onto something important.
Yeah.
And that's totally normal, by the way.
Totally.
The percentage of people who budget in America used to be 40%, and it's now down to 30%. I've been a finance speaker for 10 years. I hope that I'm not the reason that it's gone down, but I am a champion for it, because I just think it unlocks this understanding of how your small habits over time, like what they look like. It's eye-opening. It is a little dry, but it's also very eye-opening. So.
Yeah. And again, going back to mindset and values, like we're all like, I know I had a story about budgeting. Like the words that I would use are constriction, not fun. You just use the word dry, right? Like it does feel like this really like, oh, kind of thing. Like this isn't this, I want to spend my time doing other things. Except that when you know those numbers, you now have a baseline to go from, and you have data, so that when your brain starts going into freak out mode, because that's what our brains do. We have, I think I just posted something. I think we have around 35,000 thoughts a day.
Whoa.
And so,
maybe you do. I have about 17.
No, you don't even know. But I'm sure there's some negativity in there, right? Like we all have an inner critic. And so if you don't know what those numbers are, you're going to start to think like, oh man, I can't afford to have this business. And who do I think I am to think that I could ever be successful? And like all of these things, right? So when we say have a life budget, like we're saying like saving for retirement, paying for your healthcare costs, having fun money to spend, save, invest, give away, whatever it is. If you don't have those, like it's time to look at that and to start to see like, what are the stories I'm telling myself about budgeting? And more ideal, what's really fun about budgeting, yes, I said fun about budgeting, is that you can align it to what you care about, which goes back to knowing what those life values are. For Colin and I, like we love to travel. Like we love to travel even more now that we haven't been able to. And we started to, as two savers, be like, okay, the reason why we are saving is because we want to be able to go and have those experiences. Like that was a big deal to us.
Yeah. And so, one of the things with a budget, and I'll give you a couple of tools you can check out, is to think of it as a line by line kind of, I call it a battle plan sometimes. And so you go, what's an area that I want to protect and give space for? And then, okay, great. So what's an area that I I don't care as much about that I can cut back to sort of shift those resources into the area that matters. So the example I sometimes give is sort of silly, but if you love shoes, if shoes are like your thing, but you don't necessarily need the newest car, well, great. There you go. I mean, that's a massive differential, but if you can cut back on a car or keep your car for 7 years instead of, 3 or 4, you're creating a lot of money. You can spend more in line with your values and your joy. So some tools you could use, mint.com is a free website that will track all of your expenses on your credit and debit cards. It appears to be highly secure. I haven't had any concerns with it. I've been using it over a decade. So that's free. There's another website, if you want to punch it in, Karin, which is YNAB, the letters YNAB. Is that the website?
Yep,
Yeah.
It stands for You Need a Budget.
YNAB.com. Yeah, and so that one's a little more active, and you kind of actually each month you take your expenses and you categorize them. So it keeps you a little bit more, okay, let me just add, I didn't mean to put you in this role, Karin.
I'm happy to help. That's why I'm here.
Well, thank you. It is actually the letter Y.
Thank you.
Although YNAB
You
is
know
a great
what?
question.
Someone needs to go buy that domain.
It makes a lot more sense now. You need a budget.com.
YNAB.
Got it.
YNAB, I think we're all going to ask
Thanks.
ourselves. So yeah, that's another great tool. There are a bunch. There's one called Tiller.
Oh yeah.
What's important is that you pick one and then you use it. My coach likes to tell me the system that succeeds is the system that you use. And if you have 6 different budgets, or you have, a spreadsheet for cash that you sometimes fill in and sometimes don't, that's really the issue. It's not that there's a better system. It's that you need to, we all need to sort of focus on that system. Yeah, Tiller. Thank you, Karin. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm trying to be assistant coach here and just
it's great.
add support. And I think I said a little more than I planned.
No,
please go ahead.
Look at this enthusiasm about money.
I know.
Power couple.
10 years in, I still like talking about it.
So when Colin and I first did this, so we've always talked about money, and for a little while, we had a podcast called Money Date Night, because we just thought it was so crucial, and still think it's so crucial, that like, if you are partnered up, that you are having these conversations, because if you have a business, there's no doubt, and you're partnered up, that's like a thing you either talk about or avoid talking about.
Sure.
And so that, I think, has been really a secret weapon for us, is just being open about finances. And so when we did this and we looked at our mints, we found out that it cost us about $70,000 to like baseline to live and to afford the things that we need to afford.
And that is not it's a lean budget, but that's not let's call it you're sitting in a dark room, dreaming about food budget. Like it's, you're talking about saving for retirement, paying off school loans. It does not include kids. It does not include smoking. We sort of left off some things that are certainly high cost, but are not to every person, but it covers your dining out budget, your groceries. Like within those numbers, we're about 35 grand each. And so knowing that number is like, well, great. Now we have revenue goals that are consistent with.
So now you have your baseline, right? Your baseline revenue goal. And I remember when I first started out, I was like, okay, Linz, like all you have to make is $35,000. I quit a job that I was making much more. And I realized if I put that kind of pressure on myself, at least in the first year or two of my business, that was not going to motivate me.
Right.
Now that I've had my business since 2014, so 6+ years, I'm at the point where I'm like, all right, I know what I can make possible. What's my next goal? And that is what I think is really fun about setting revenue goals, because it gets you to think about what is possible. And so, okay, yeah, sure. I was aiming for this meet your life budget at first. And that got me to find the coaches I needed to figure out, what did I need to invest so that I could, get better at whatever I was, at coaching, for example. What are the systems I need to spend money on? My email marketing, my website, blah, blah, blah. Now that I'm beyond that, I am trying to aim higher. And that is interesting because that is a total mindset shift. I have gone from, I just want to be totally transparent with you all, going from bootstrapping, DIY, got to do everything yourself, to now I need a team. I've grown to the point where like I can't do everything on my own if I want to stay in my zone of genius and like where my values lie. And that is a real mind. It's hard because you realize that you have this identity, my frugality, my savor, like it got me here. And now I'm trying to get to the next place. And Colin is in the same mode as well. We've kind of had parallel businesses. And so one of our all-time favorite, you're putting in, that's a great idea.
Is that cool if I just
go
quickly
for
elaborate?
it. Yeah, go for it.
I sometimes use this as a graphic when I'm doing a presentation, but in general, and there are more if you dig deeper, but in general, there are 4 financial money personality types. This comes from Olivia Mellon. This is not my creation, but they are a spender, a saver, an avoider, and a giver. Is anyone on here willing to just shout out which one resonates most with them?
Avoider, giver. Okay.
Yeah, avoider, saver,
avoider with exclamation.
So this, a passionate avoider. Kate. and Kate, you sound like a creative type, right? And so I connect to that, right? It's I actually avoided personal finance until I was hired to be a financial workshop presenter 10 years ago, 11 years ago. I just left that as this black hole I tried to avoid.
I don't hate it.
What's that?
I don't hate it. It's, when I give myself time to really learn about how my money needs to work and think long term, it's great. But on a daily or even a weekly basis, I just run out of time for that kind of thinking.
Thank you for sharing that, Kim. Thank you, by the way, for sharing that. I could see people, nodding. That's super relevant. And I think that's a great example. I wanted to share that to illustrate what Lindsay was saying, which is this idea of you're kind of wired toward one of these the most. And especially when you're exhausted or stressed or overworked, like Kim is talking about, we fall back on the wired one. So the point I wanted to make, none of these are wrong, but sometimes I do it as a graphic, like which of these 4, and I think a better visual for us to take forward is like a pie chart. And the idea being we're all 4, right? You're not one of these, but am I in balance? Or is my avoider like Pac-Manning the whole pie chart, right? And Karin.
Quick question. Do you think that you can have different personalities for your personal life versus your business? I feel like a really split personality. When I looked at that list, I was like, oh, I don't know how to pick, because I kind of saw duality in how I behave.
What are your 2?
I'm an investor for my business. I really think about, is this how I want to do this? Is the best, is this how I'm going to get the most bang for my buck? Will this reach my platform? And will this extend opportunities? Like I really, really have to decide, if I'm going to get the whole Canva package or whatever it is. I really think about it and try all the free testers and, test it out. And then for my personal life, I have to look at the list again. I am both avoider and spender. I think I'm both.
Oh, that's so fun. That's so good to know.
It is fun.
That makes you one of the more fun, socially fun character personality. No, I think that is super helpful to know that about yourself. And boy, that's great. And I do think it's I don't have anything super intelligent to say, but I think it's knowing that you can be split personality in this way. And also over time, the personal ones that you haven't resolved or addressed effectively will bleed into, will show up in your business.
Yes.
For sure. As a recovering saver of every dime, investing in my business was a real challenge. It was not, I was a bootstrapper all the way until I started to realize, do I want to get there faster, more effectively, and have more fun? Then I need a coach. I can't keep doing this on my own. Just to save some money.
Yep.
So.
Yeah, I have bolded here. Your personal finance problems show up as your business finance problems.
At some point or another.
Yes. Yep.
Oh gosh.
Can you talk a little bit about your mindset? It sounds like you kind of flipped to gamify how you think about your business, not just like getting to your 35, but now how did you change your mindset and how you approach that?
So there is an amazing podcast that has just it's changed my life because it's all around, it's called, I'm going to swear, it's called Unfuck Your Brain.
Yeah, don't hold back.
And it is by a master coach. Her name's Cara Lowenthal.
You wrote Untuck Your Brain. So you didn't swear. That's been censored.
Substitute the T for an F. You will find it. But she had this year, she had her first podcast this year was on impossible goals. And the thing that I love about Cara is she was a lawyer. She's super direct. She's just like, everything is backed by facts. And she's really great at showing us that we are not the best, we're not the best people to say what's possible for ourselves. And so this year, when she was talking about impossible goals, she says an impossible goal is basically a big goal you set that you don't think you can accomplish. And when I listened to that, I was like, well, what's the point of that then? If I can't accomplish it, then like, why, what's the point of even articulating something like that? And what I didn't understand, and now after processing it for a few days, is what it helps you to do when you pick an impossible goal, something that you don't think you can accomplish. It helps you start to adopt this mindset of like, well, what would I have to do in order to be a person who makes $500,000 this year? What would she have to do? To do, instead of this like, well, I've made way more than $35,000 and I can do that and I can continue to do that. But if my goal, my why behind this $500,000, goal, for example, or my why is to be able to increase the number of people I'm coaching, for example, like doing one-on-one, I'm one person. Like, I'm not going to be making I could probably if I decided that was how I wanted to do it. But what I was going to say is I wouldn't be able to make $500,000 coaching everyone one-on-one, and keeping my price at an accessible place. So it has really I'm not balking at this idea of an impossible goal anymore. I think it really helps you think about being in service of that person. And what would they do? What kind of resources would they need to get there? And it also helps you take inventory of the resources you already have. So this is the other thing I wrote down about impossible goals. She said the reason to set an impossible goal is because the most fun thing about being human is doing something you didn't think you were capable of. So staying safe, I think at least having a low bar goal when you're first starting out, I think it does help you start to adopt the feeling of being an entrepreneur. But, what else is possible at this point? So does that answer, Karin?
Yeah, no, that's great. I think I absolutely appreciate the thought of having outside influences that ask us and inspire us or provoke us to think of our higher calling and the impact that we can have through our work. So it's not just about the day-to-day, but the aspiration and possibility of what you might achieve. I love that.
Because we underestimate what we are capable of. We just do, and so we get to practice thinking bigger. If that's not something that you tend to do, it sounds so silly, but put 5 minutes on your calendar and think about the future No, Colin and I, this is someplace we differ. I'm all future. I love thinking about the future. Colin is the most present person I've ever met in my entire life.
I'm a little bit like our dog. I'm just like, I'm here.
Yeah, it's lovely. I strive to be more like that, but I'm like 5 years down the road. And so, for my birthday one year, I was like, babe, can we just like make a bucket list? I think that was a gift I wanted, and you did it with me. Mm-hmm. But it's not, but you've gotten better because you've practiced future thinking.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So if you were to think about an impossible goal for 2021, right? It can feel like you just want to laugh saying it out loud or typing it. Like, what would that be? What would you achieve that would just like absolutely tickle you, like blow your mind? Like, what would that goal be? I said $500,000. That feels right now in my business like a laughable goal. So either in the chat, like if you're brave enough, I would love to see some impossible goals in the chat. And it can be related to money or it can be something else.
Sure.
As you think about that, the next thing you're going to need to think about is what resources it's going to take for you to get there. And that is what's going to help you figure out what your business is truly going to cost you. That gets into the business expenses. And some of the expenses that you have right now might fall off because they're not in service to that bigger impossible goal, right? So this is how you can start to make business budgeting more fun because it's in line with who you want to be, who you want to show up as. Finally, something talking about, I think, Karin, at one point, maybe you said opportunity cost or, you're nodding. The woman that I have hired as my coach reminded me this weekend about the idea of a daily opportunity cost. So here's what this concept means. Say, if my revenue goal, I did $300,000 on here. I was thinking too small on my notes. Say my revenue goal is 300,000 for the year. What you're going to do is you divide that by 12 months, and that comes out to about $25,000 a month. So that would be my revenue goal for a month. If I took $25,000 and I divided that by 21, because that's the number of working days in a month, roughly, that's about $1,200 a day, right? So every day that I do not take action costs me $1,200. Yeah. So when you start to think about, these decisions, like Karin, I'm thinking about you talking about Canva. Canva's like what, $13 a month?
Right.
Like is so worth it. Just buy in. It's great. I love it. Now I love it.
Some of these things, when you start to put them in these filters, right? You just buy it.
Once you invest, you realize the value that you can maximize through the resource. But until you do, you're, crimping and kind of hovering, shuddering in the corner. Like, is this the right thing? Is this the right way to spend money? And then when you opt in, you have the keys to the castle and you can use all of the resources.
And never underestimate the power of human ego and pride. So once you've spent the money, your brain starts going, this is why this was a great decision. Totally. Even if you don't see the results right away, because you don't want to live in the pain of, oh no.
Right. No, this is a bad choice. Yeah.
No. You're like, it's done. So now
take responsibility. You owned it.
Yeah. So I just covered core values, life budget, business budget with the impossible goal, and then opportunity cost, right? So when you're doing your 2021 planning, business budget planning, these are the ingredients to thinking about this. Okay, I'm going to turn it over to Colin, and you want to talk about?
Yeah, I'm just going to take a couple of quick minutes to talk about this philosophy that has motivated me a long time, which is courageous finance. And once I've done that, we would love to have you have some space to ask questions that you might have brought with you. And also, if you want to set a goal, I think, I don't want to put Lindsay on the spot, but she could maybe help you start to coach toward that, right? To sort of ask what might get in the way. So courageous finance. It starts with the idea that in my life, courage is required to be where I am, to make good decisions, to show up every day. So we all operate with courage. How can you use that courage to change your behavior when it comes to money? One very practical example of this is to set a small saving habit or eliminate a small spending habit that you know intuitively will pay off over time, right? Or redesign a small spending habit. For example, you buy coffee out versus make coffee at home. You're going to spend a tremendous amount more money by buying coffee out. So that could be one way that you recalibrate. And I want to be clear, this is very important. Budgeting never means the end of fun. It never means you go to zero. It means now maybe you do it one time less. That's all. It's just, these are tiny tweaks.
Can I add one other, which could be not necessarily saving, but increasing. So increasing your business rate, for example. I have had many people have coached around, like, I've always charged this much, you know, I can't increase my rates. And that is the flip side, right? Like, it doesn't always have to be a constriction. It can be, you know, an increase in what you're charging.
And, you know, Lindsay might hate this, but something that I have observed over time is the way in which she helps her clients raise their ask and then get it. And it's pretty phenomenal to watch her, you know, cheer for these people. And then I get to cheer for her because I'm like, you understand how dramatically you affected, and you do understand, but like, just to reinforce that you've dramatically changed their life, not only in the amount of money they immediately are going to start earning, but in what we call an earning trajectory.
Yes.
Right. So you can build off of that, or you can get stuck in this is my flat, my rate, this is all I can charge or all I am worth. So,
which is a story. It's an identity.
Yes. And make no mistake, this one requires courage, which you have.
You already have it.
You have the courage. So, you know, and Lindsay teaches this, but it's a learnable skill to say your new number and then just be quiet. You're going to want to throw up all over. You won't, but you're going to want to. And it's really just practicing this muscle. And I'll tell you, for both of us, we have rehearsed in the mirror, right? Lindsay is my personal negotiation coach and has forced me to pick a new number when I get stuck. Right. And as a speaker, I've been able to incrementally raise that every year, but nobody emails me and says, you know, very rarely do they say, what's your new rate? Or, you know, they just assume it's whatever you charged at one point. So it's your job to raise that. So that's courage.
I have a quick question about that. How much of it is about communicating your value to the audience you already have, as compared to expanding your outreach to new audiences?
Interesting. Can you say a little more about?
I know topics of money are usually incredibly uncomfortable in American cultural contexts. Like, we're just raised not to talk about it, not to ask about it, not to toot your own horn, just to be humble and like, don't negotiate too hard, which is all the things we can learn from Lindsay about how better to behave around what we're worth and how to ask for it. I'm curious if you have insights about when we, you know, as we level up in what we're asking, how do you balance communicating the value that you offer to the people who already know you, and the balance or expanding your audience to other people who don't already know your what you offer? Does that make sense?
It does.
Great question.
I think that there's this jet laggy thing that can occur where we we are hooked onto this old identity. And we have maybe you have increased the amount of service, or you are going in a slightly different direction, or like whatever. And you have made the case, it's part of your brand. Like your pricing is part of your brand. And if you are your brand, like that your brand communicates the value of your service, the result that you're getting for people. And so if you don't have that communicated yet, then you're not ready to have those conversations. But to your point, Karin, it kind of reminds me of email newsletters. So every time I send out a new email newsletter, I get unsubscribes. Not many, but they hurt. You're like, oh, 2, what? But I think like, great. Like they're just filtering, filtering themselves out. And I think the same thing about pricing. If people aren't coming along with you, it's okay. It's not personal. It's just that either there's this great quote. I actually have it. Maybe when we were talking, I think I showed you my sticky note, but it says money is almost always the excuse, but never the reason. If people aren't sold on the value of your service or your product or whatever, it's not worth your time, but you got to be real truthful with yourself if you are presenting it in such a way that is compelling and that you're selling, right. Selling is not a dirty word. It's just educating people to know whether or not your product or service is the right one for them,
Cool.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So I think it's okay to say goodbye to those people.
It's also okay to lower your price, get sucked into something, feel resentment, and swear you'll never do it again. Right? Does that not feel relatable? You learn from it. And so it's okay to mess that up and to still pay attention. You don't have to be crushed into the identity of the person who says yes when they want to say no, right? This is a great way to learn. I highly recommend this way because it's a little more in touch with the reality, which is we learn from our mistakes. We learn from our tiny failures, how to be more effective the next time. I want to make some mistakes. I have one more sort of courageous finance thing I'd love to share at the end if there's time. I want to echo Karin shared one, which is to invest in your business. I really encourage people to differentiate between spending and investing when it comes to your business. In your personal life, it's pretty straightforward. Investing is money you put into a stock or into a mutual fund or use Robinhood, right? And invest in an ETF or index fund, something like that. And spending is buying your needs and your wants. When it comes to your business, investing means hiring a coach, becoming part of a community where people elevate you. It's buying systems that allow you to excel.
Education.
And it's very important, and I've already shared why, and I speak to this personally, it's very important to differentiate the two. Are we in a good spot to open it up if people have questions?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. So we've covered a lot. What's coming up for people? And feel free to unmute.
So that daily opportunity cost, is that what it was?
Yeah.
I did that sort of privately.
Yeah.
Cool.
Offline. And it came up to a daily number that is actually completely doable. And so that little piece of information was really, that's what I got out of the last hour. And it's like the most actionable part of what I got out of the last hour. So I just want to thank you for that. That alone, super, super helpful.
Thank you.
It was sort of running in the back of my mind, like an endless loop of how much money do I need? Where do I start? What are my revenue goals? And that was a really quick, handy framework.
Good.
Yeah, that would be another question to chime in on is, was there one idea or part of this talk that really connected with where you're at right now?
I really enjoyed when you guys talked about hitting that first budget, that 35,000, this is what I need, and then how hard it is to step into that second one. Because I
Yeah.
definitely feel like that's where I am, and it's a really hard, like, it's a really weird mindset to just not have an answer of, I don't know how much I'm going to make this year, but it's going to be more than this small amount. And how do you factor all of that stuff in? So I appreciated the way you kind of tackled what that looks like and how that feels, because I don't think people talk about it a lot. Like, I bootstrapped this thing for 2 years, and like, you just kind of see yourself here, but it's hard to step here. So thank you.
Yeah, and what you sometimes
Yeah.
find is the people who we follow, the people who inspire us, are quite open about their success and their numbers. And I think we can always take a page out of their book and say, look, they didn't get there because they're just insanely confident, for no particular reason. They often got there through teaching themselves this goal and repeating this goal. So that's great, Janina. I'm excited for you. You've got a whole new territory to explore.
Yeah. And it's also not all like up. I remember years where Colin and I both made 6 figures and we were the most unhappy. We were so, it was not good.
Yeah. I think if you do it the wrong way, or you place that on a pedestal, and I feel very fortunate to have had this experience. But yeah, it does not mean what you think it's going to mean. And I think that's always the challenge with money, is that it is a means to the end. It is not the end.
Nope.
And that's, culturally we're taught it's the end. You have this and you're there. Fame and fortune, right? We're taught if you have those, you can just coast. And I think with both of those, what you find is, nope, you're still alive. You still got to get up and do something with your time. And you want to get that in a way that lines with your core values. Anyone else have a thing that they, would like to share, that a part that really stood out to them, or a question that we haven't addressed yet? Sounds like we killed it.
I think you did, but I'm a little biased. I've been following both of your careers over the last 5 or so years anyway, and just so grateful for the opportunity to connect with you and bite off some digestible goals for ways that we can approach our goals and our mindset, so that we can expand our possibility and potential for our business growth in this year, and connect with other people who share a hope that we can expand our business in this platform. Yeah.
I have a final courageous finance thought for you all. Is that cool, Karin?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so now that you've closed it out so elegantly.
No, keep it coming.
I think this is very helpful. So the number one way to impact the amounts that you spend and save is to look at the people that you spend the most time with in your life. And to understand that those people affect these 2 areas. They affect our mindset and they affect our behavior. Every research study I've read says the people who are financially successful tend to associate with people who spend less than they do, not the same amount or more. Now, again, is that an image that we're presented with? Not really. We tend to think of this sort of group of people who are all sort of spending, freely. It's not really the case. So the number one way to increase your saving is to associate with people who spend less, who are living at the kind of level you want to be living at. So this is actually called a lifestyle reference group, which is a boring financial term for the people you spend the most time with, your partners, your friends, your, family. And so, right. That might be a great way to close out, is who in here needs to get a divorce to actualize this piece of advice? So you might share some of these ideas with that person, because I want to illustrate that Lindsey and I do have a lot of different comfort and values around money. And so you can always sort of incrementally move in the direction that you want to move. And this is incremental, right? This is small steps that lead to big results. So I wanted to share that with you because you can either approach a little warily the people around you who don't behave financially the way you want, or you can start to add people to your small group who help you spend differently, and more importantly, as business owners, elevate you and believe in you and challenge you and want fulfillment for you. So those are my thoughts.
I love that.
Yeah, it's interesting because once we started, not to like, we are both coaches, so we believe in coaching, but I remember when finally one of us just like was like, all right, I invested like a lot of money in this coach. The other one soon followed. And but I think it's because we're in our own, this is our lifestyle reference group. And so surround yourself with people you want to be like. If you are hanging out with people who never, for example, like negotiate or think, poorly around like asking for more money, like you're going to feel that way too,
That's true.
Anyway, yeah, I could talk all day about that. So who you're hanging out with matters.
So I see that Karin left a link to Lindsay's course, Build a Profitable LinkedIn Profile. That's really, really awesome.
That was super fun. Yeah. So this is my you have your LinkedIn profile up, you have the course up, and you're literally just like, you should be able to update your LinkedIn in 2 hours or less.
Little spring cleaning.
A little spring cleaning. Yep. And I spend a lot of time on LinkedIn. If you don't feel good about your profile, like just do yourself a favor. It's $99. So you get it for half of that. It's really, to me, a no-brainer. And I think a lot of us hold ourselves back from the LinkedIn game because we don't like our profiles. So just, that is my little gift to you all.
Thank you. I would just offer, adding on to what Colin shared, is that we each have the ability to influence the people around us too. So as you connect with people and you're inspired by, positive influences in your life, remember that the way that you share what you're learning in your business also extends that opportunity to others. So if you like what you heard today, talk about it, tell people, let people know, connect them with Lindsay and Colin and Vermont Collaborative Circle. And I hope that you'll continue the growth opportunities for yourself and also your community. And I'm just really excited for the opportunity to share this time with you, and grateful. Thank you, Lindsay and Colin, for sharing your talents and your insights and humor.
Thank you. Remember to send that chat before we leave, so you don't go, oh no.
The questions. I need the questions.
Done.
Absolutely. Yeah. So thank you so much.
Thank you,
and I'll just add that we have some really exciting events coming up. Tomorrow, we have a Pivot and Thrive interview with Laura Mack from Lulu Ice Cream and Virgins. On Thursday night, we have a wine tasting experience. And if you register, sign up for the Pivot and Thrive community and register by the end of the day today, and your wine is included. Thank you. Kim is facilitating that event. So we're really looking forward to that. Every week we have a community meetup, and then we have a bunch of events lined up next week and in the next few weeks as well. We have a talk about tax planning, all that fun stuff, but that really helps you to align your business for success. So think in advance about how you want to show up and share your talents and how we can help you to support your business goals for this year. And I'm just really excited for the opportunity to connect with you all, and grateful to hold this space with you. So
I like, Karin, that you mentioned the wine event and then tax planning. You can combine the two if you want. I think
we'll make it fun. We'll make it great.
Definitely probably going to help. I know we tend to.
At least make it a little more palatable, right?
Oh, yeah.
Well, thank you all so much for joining, and I hope to see you again soon.
Thank you.
Take care.